My voice, my videos, exclusively only on Screen Hoopla. Robert Mueller just got served. The Department of Justice appears to be hiding Special Counsel Robert Mueller's budget from the American people. Among other hidden things that are now coming to light, Mueller has some 17 lawyers, many of which have direct ties to either the Clintons or the Obamas, digging into President Donald Trump and his administration, and associates with virtually no oversight. Even the Washington Post reported that Mueller submitted a proposed budget to the Justice Department, but officials declined to make the document public and committed only to release reports of the team's expenditures every 6 months. This is a departure from the usual protocol, as even the Washington Post notes. When Patrick J. Fitzgerald, at the time a U.S. attorney, was appointed as special counsel to investigate the leak of the identity of CIA officer Valerie Palme, the U.S. Government Accountability Office audited this expenditure statements every 6 months and released them publicly. Given the lack of oversight, Judicial Watch filed a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit again concerning the budget and administration's records of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation. There is no doubt that the deep state is in deep cover mode. The FBI, Justice Department, and the Special Counsel all are stonewalling our requests for Comey's documents and for the budget. The more they stonewall, the deeper the suspicion becomes and grows about Comey's complicity. In my experience in Washington, D.C., when people refuse to come clean, it is usually because they are hiding dirty laundry. And the next time Nancy Pelosi says, "Transparency, we're all about transparency," that's exactly a red flag. The ones who state that are actually the ones who have something to hide. Special Counsel Robert Mueller's team faces Russian truth in U.S. federal court for the first time. A scathingly written report today heaps scorn and ridicule on Special Counsel Robert Mueller and his legal team for their actions in a U.S. federal district court yesterday, when for the first time they faced an actual Russian counterattack against the so-called Trump-Russian collusion probe, and that terrified Mueller's team to such extent they begged President Trump-appointed U.S. federal judge Dabney Friedrich for a continuance, with their afterwards fleeing from the courtroom like little babies in soiled nappies looking for their mommies. According to this report, while leading the deep state coup d'etat against President Trump, the most ill-conceived of and thought-out action ever taken by an American legal official in all of recorded history occurred on February 16, 2018, when Special Counsel Robert Mueller indicted 13 Russian citizens and 3 Russian companies for allegedly interfering in the 2016 presidential election, but whose true intent was to provide mental fodder for the clamoring leftist talking heads of the U.S. mainstream propaganda media establishment needing something more to smear President Trump with. Though being given by Special Counsel Robert Mueller a leftist tabloid headlines like "Trump-Russian collusion probe nabs Russian citizens and companies to hammer President Trump over the head with," this report continues that the U.S. mainstream propaganda media failed to inform anybody that this was a joke indictment that converted legitimate American free speech into insidious Russian bots, with it not even mentioning anything at all about Russian hacking, WikiLeaks, or anything else of substance, but that Mueller didn't care about, as he knew that no Russian would ever come to the United States to face these charges. So he thought. It is most unfortunate for Special Counsel Robert Mueller, though, and who should have better known, this report states, was that one of the companies he charged in his joke indictment was the Russian company Concord Management and Consulting, that under U.S. law has corporate personhood that enables it to have the same rights as an individual, and who quickly hired Reed Smith LLP, a global law firm headquartering in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, with more than 1,800 lawyers in 27 offices throughout the United States, Europe, the Middle East, and Asia to defend it. undoubtedly shaken Special Counsel Robert Mueller to his very core. This report details that on April 11, 2018, Reed Smith LLP attorneys Eric Dublier and Kate Saikali filed notice with the U.S. federal court that they would be defending Concord Management and Consulting against these joke indictment charges, and who followed this notice with a viral avalanche of discovery requests that under U.S. law Mueller must give them. That includes their demanding that Robert Mueller immediately turn over to them 51 categories of information, including details about online platforms the government has discovered, individuals believed to have been involved in charged and uncharged activity, and names of potential witnesses, including all statements, recordings, or electronic surveillance of Concord officers and employees. While this avalanche of discovery demands made on Special Counsel Robert Mueller without a doubt had him shaking to his very core, as to do so would reveal the entire secret workings of his Trump-Russia collusion probe for all of the world to see. As this report continues, what the attorneys for Reed Smith LLP demanded next, and again without a doubt, sent actual tremors of fear throughout the entire deep state, and that under U.S. federal court rules known as Rule 12 requests, had these Reed Smith LLP attorneys demanding that Robert Mueller immediately turn over to them all documents and information relating to, from 1945 to present, each and every instance where any officer, employee, and or agent of the United States government engaged in operations to interfere with elections and political processes in any foreign country, including but not limited to information relating to whether any such activity utilized propaganda in any form, including but not limited to the use of social media. This disclosure should include any and all information regarding the use of computer infrastructure inside and outside of the United States, false foreign identities, goals to sow discord in a foreign political system, assistance to a foreign elected official or candidate, attacks on a foreign elected official or candidate, assassination or conspiracy to assassinate a foreign elected official or candidate, buying political advertisements, posing as foreign persons, and or failure to honestly identify to foreign voters the involvement of any officer, employee, or agent of the United States government. Knowing full well that under U.S. law he has to provide to Reed Smith LLP attorneys all of the documents and information they've demanded, this report notes that Special Counsel Robert Mueller, however, did no such thing, choosing instead to have his legal team ask for a continuance by outright lying to U.S. Federal Judge Dabney Friedrich and comically claiming that maybe the Russian company Concord Management and Consulting hadn't been served with their summons yet, with their not even bothering to explain how this was so, as Concord's lawyers were sitting right next to them in the courtroom. Equally as worse for Special Counsel Robert Mueller, at nearly the same time his legal team was fleeing from the courtroom of Judge Friedrich like babies in soiled nappies looking for their mommies, the President Ronald Reagan appointed U.S. Senior Federal Court Judge T.S. Ellis III was likewise ripping apart another one of Mueller's legal teams by calling them liars, accusing them of wanting unfettered power, and exposing this deep state charade for what it really is by stating you don't really care about Mr. Manafort, you really care about what information Mr. Manafort can give you to lead you to Mr. Trump and an impeachment or whatever. Even to Special Counsel Robert Mueller's first so-called success in getting General Michael Flynn to plead guilty to a charge of lying to the FBI, this report notes that actually no success at all, with Mueller once again having to postpone Flynn's sentencing hearing for at least another 2 months, and that's no doubt due to the stunning new evidence showing that former FBI Director Comey and other FBI agents testified under oath to the U.S. Congress, stating that in fact Flynn had never lied to anyone. General Flynn, meanwhile, while this deep state charade plays itself out, this report states that appears to have not a care in the world with this weekend his traveling to Montana to campaign on President Trump's behalf, for the American war hero Troy Downing, who saved countless lives of his fallen brothers and sisters on the battlefields of Afghanistan, and who is seeking to throw out of power the vile deep state monster U.S. Senator John Tester, and about whom just days ago Russian intelligence service operatives revealed was behind the vile honey trap plot to place near President Trump an alleged cult member and physician to Vice President Mike Pence, Jennifer Pena, MD, but whose plot failed and ended in Dr. Pena being ousted from the White House forever. As to why Special Counsel Robert Mueller and the deep state continued to meet failure upon failure in their plot to destroy President Trump, this report details in due to their never realizing that General Flynn, who is one of the most accomplished intelligence operatives in U.S. military history, had already secured a secret immunity agreement with U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions long before he agreed to a plea deal with Mueller, and that allowed him and others like him who agreed to Mueller's plea deals to covertly operate behind enemy lines of Mueller and the deep state. The intelligence tactic of having U.S. government officials like General Flynn plead guilty to charges while having secret immunity deals in order to allow them to infiltrate other U.S. governmental operations, this report explains, that was invented by one of the most feared attorneys in modern American history named Roy Cohn, who used this tactic to infiltrate the U.S. State Department and other U.S. government agencies to root out communist spies, and who, while aiding the equally feared President Richard Nixon, operative Roger Stone, both of whom worked to elect the equally leftist despised President Ronald Reagan in 1980, passed on this knowledge to Stone, who used it to protect President Reagan from prosecution during the Iran-Contra affair. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, this goes back decades, with the most powerful man in America during nearly the entire 20th century being FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, whom even presidents feared to go against. This report concludes one of the most enduring mysteries to Russian intelligence agencies is why the deep state failed to notice that Hoover was so fond of Roy Cohn that he offered him the ultimate accolade in 1954 and insisted that Cohn call him Edgar. Cohn, for anyone bothering to notice, was the original Donald Trump before they declared all-out war on President Trump, particularly because Cohn had been teaching Trump how to be president since the 1970s, and whose lessons were continued under the guidance of Cohn protege Roger Stone, thus making Trump not one of the most, but the most formidable and utterly ruthless American presidents in history that not even Moscow or China wants to be an enemy of, and that to their utter and complete destruction, the deep state will soon learn the truth of too, as it's not actually Trump they're fighting against, but the 21st century political reincarnation of Roy Cohn, who this time around wields the full power and frightening unstoppable might of the U.S. president, and who is really, really angry.